Hello, hello. How's everybody today? My name is Heather Fillmore, and I am a certified life coach for Enneagram 9s. I specifically chose to work with Enneagram 9s once I learned about the Enneagram, and because I love to be able to help people who think the way that I do. So fun to have you here, and I hope that I can really help you today with your strong emotions that cause anger. And I don't want to say your anger because not everybody feels like that they have anger issues, but that definitely can say that they have strong emotions and they would like to learn how to kind of control and temper them a little bit. So I'm going to teach you today 5 strategies to prevent or help you to move through your anger more quickly. A little bit about me. I am a mom of 9, and here's my family back in at Christmas time this past year. We had 5 biological children, and then something I'd wanted to do my whole life was to be the mom of kids from hard places who wouldn't have a family otherwise. And my husband kind of jumped on board with me with this idea, and we added 4 children to our family in the course of 5 years. So there's Anya that has Down syndrome, Hazel that has Down syndrome. They're both from Russia, and then we have Louis and Liam, who are both from China, that came home together at the same time 4 years ago. So before they came into my life, I felt like I was just such a calm, easygoing mom. And I mean, sure, it was challenging, having toddlers and all of this with my type 9 energy. But I felt like I had a good control of my emotions and my anger. But once they joined us, they started trickling into our family, I started noticing a different side of me that I had never seen before. And that was a very reactive person. Their adoptions were traumatic on not of course on them, but they were traumatic for us too. It was a lot of hard things getting them here and then adjusting to having them in our family. And I kind of had some PTSD from it. And so for several years there, I struggled with depression, and I tried antidepressants. They helped me with my anger, but I didn't like the side effects. So I went off of those. I tried some counseling. I tried some alternative types of therapies and, self-help groups for adoptive parents, just everything that I could try and do to help. I was trying to fix my circumstances, like fix the kids with their issues and change things. But I didn't realize at the time that a lot of my anger issues were actually caused by my own thoughts. And I learned this when I started listening to the Life Coach School podcast. I had a friend tell me about it, and I just started at the very first one and started listening to him. And all of a sudden, I was like noticing all these things that I had never noticed before. Just how, I didn't have to be the victim here in my life. I didn't have to feel self-pity. I was choosing to do that. And I started just slowly learning these tools and applying them to my life. And that put me into the driver's seat of my emotions. I wasn't at the effect of everything and everyone anymore. And I mean, here we are it's been 10 years since we started adopting these kids. And they've gotten a little easier, but now we're going into the teen years with our oldest little one from Russia, and she's got very intense emotions. And so it's not like it's gotten easier as far as the circumstances go, but I am so much more able to just watch things happen from a neutral space and not let myself get fired up. So I'm going to teach you some of these skills today. I hope that they are helpful for you. And just ask me any questions after you've watched it. Email me any questions that you have. Okay, so what makes 9s angry? I asked this question on my social media platforms. on Instagram and in my Facebook group. And some of the things that makes us the most angry is, from what I heard from others, is disruptions of any kind to something that's going well, like good relationships or routines that feel really comfortable. Those disruptions really make us mad because we like to feel peace. Secondly, when others tell you what to do or how to be, when you kind of get that condescending feeling from people, that's very triggering for us nines. And I have noticed this for me. Being ignored or talked over is a huge one because we already have this message replaying in our brain that our presence doesn't matter. So when we feel like we are ignored, it's like solidifying that belief that we have. So that feels very triggering as well. When other people take advantage of you is a huge one. We're easy to take advantage of, right? We're very agreeable and people pleasers. Direct confrontation is obviously going to be a big one. Noise is a huge one for us. We're real sensitive to a lot of noise. That's my biggest problem with having a large family. And then feeling unsupported in your decisions, because we take so long to make a decision in the first place and we put so much thought into it. And then when someone doesn't support us, that feels very dangerous to us. So these are some of the main things that trigger our anger. And here's a few things that we do when we're angry. We go quiet. Rather than speaking up and telling someone how we feel, we just kind of retreat, this back away. And especially if we are a 9-wing 1, we do this. Instead of talking things out, we buffer. So instead of feeling those negative emotions, we don't like the feeling of it. And so we use something to buffer away from that emotion. So picking up our phone, scrolling, that helps us to kind of ignore what's happening, or whatever it is that brings you pleasure, whether it's eating or even running or something. We do these other things to keep ourselves from having to feel that negative emotion, and it creates a more negative effect in our lives. So sometimes it's okay to do these things, but when we do too much of it, it makes things harder. We spin and ruminate in thoughts. Even if we're quiet, our brains are just going and spinning. We stay unaware of our anger until an event happens that brings it up. And then all of a sudden we're just ruminating and spinning. And we're not actually resolving the problem. We're just sitting there and spinning. We have this funny thing that happens with us is like, we're all quiet and we just act like nothing's a big deal. We're so peaceful. And then all of a sudden we have this quick outburst and it takes people by surprise. And then, even takes, when I've done this before, it takes me by surprise. I'm like, where did that come from? That didn't even sound like me. And then we just feel so drained afterwards. And then another biggie is we act passive aggressively. We're really famous for that. And then we take it out on other people who aren't even involved. I'll find this, like when one kid is driving me crazy, I'll go and talk to another kid and I take it out on them. So these are some of the main things that we do. And the reason why I share these is just so that you can just notice, because sometimes we're so asleep to ourselves that we're not even noticing that what we're doing here is from anger. So it's good just to be aware. My objective today in this class is to teach you 5 strategies that will help you to move through your anger more easily, or to prevent it from happening in the first place. I'm going to just teach you these amazing tools that are going to help you with that. Okay, step 1 is use the model to gain self-awareness. This model was created by Brooke Castillo. It's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, and then it just takes it a little further. And it's what I use to coach my clients and coach myself. And it's so amazing the way it works. You can take any problem that you're having and you can plug all the parts of that problem into this model. and it slows down your thinking. It shows you what's creating the problem, which is always your thought, and helps you to just kind of gain access to other ways of thinking of it so that you can handle it better. So it starts with the circumstance, and the circumstance is just the situation, just whatever's happening in the world. The circumstance is just the facts. So in this picture, we have a whole bunch of cars that are stopped or going really slowly in traffic, and that's just the plain old facts. So what happens is we have this circumstance that's going on, and then we think a thought about the circumstance. So in this circumstance, say we have a PTA meeting that we're on the way to, and we're going to be late, and because we're in traffic, and our thought is, this is a problem because I'm going to be late and I'm going to look bad. That thought was optional, right? This is what makes this circumstance a problem. And then that thought creates a feeling. We think that our feelings are happening because of what's going on, but it's actually not from what's going on. Our feeling doesn't come from the circumstance. Our feeling comes because of a thought that we have going on in our head. Sometimes that thought is conscious, a sentence that is going on in our brain, like, this is a problem, I'm going to be late. Sometimes it's unconscious. It's something that we're not even aware that we're thinking. So at any rate, our feelings come from our thoughts. And then our feelings drive our actions. It's what causes us to do or to not do whatever we're doing. So in this circumstance, if I had the thought, this is a problem, and then that created a feeling of anger, that feeling would create actions of, going really fast and then slamming on my brakes and hitting my steering wheel and, cussing or, I don't know, just taking the anger out in any way I can. And then when I actually got there, eventually I would be all flustered, and I wouldn't be really talking to people very clearly. I'd be apologizing and blaming it on the traffic. All of these things would be because of this feeling that I had of frustration or anger. And then all of these actions create the result. So we think that our results in our lives are just happening just because, but actually our thoughts are what create our results if you look at this model. And we know that we've done the model right when the result is tied into the thought, and it connects with it. Either our thought creates a result, or we can see that our result was created by the thought. And in this instance, if our thought is, this is a huge problem, I'm going to look bad, we create this result where it's a problem and we look bad because we show up not as our best self when we get there. So this is just an example, and I'm going to share a couple of other examples of how to use this model. So here's a model where I was trying to think of examples where we get angry as nines. I wanted to think of an example where I felt that condescending feeling from someone. So this is something that really happened to me a couple of years ago. I had a son that was in the 5th grade, and he was struggling with anxiety and was missing a lot of school because it caused stomach problems. So he would wake up in pain and just refused to go to school. He was missing a lot. He was behind. And then when I had a parent-teacher conference with the teacher, I could tell the minute I walked in there, she had her guns out and she was ready to listen, lady, I need to tell you how to be a mom to this kid. You just need to make him come to school. And so the circumstance was that she said, so what happened is I was telling her that it's out of my hands. I can't help it. My son, I can't force him to go to school. And then she said, you're the mom here. You can totally do what you want. And it came across as very condescending to me, like she was telling me that I didn't know what I was doing. And I was feeling really defensive about it. So I had this thought that she's judging me. And that thought created a feeling of anger inside of me. And from that anger, I was just thinking about everything that I'm doing wrong as a mom. I was just spinning in really mean thoughts about her. I was judging her. I was finding all this evidence of why she's just the worst teacher ever and talking to my son about her, just not being the kind of mom that I want to be. And it created this result where I was judging myself more than I needed to, and I was really judging her. And this, it just, I was not being the highest version of myself. Didn't feel right. So I did some self-coaching, and we're going to come back to this and I'll show you what I came up with as I coached myself through this. First, I'm going to share with you another example. So this example is one where I was feeling ignored. So I was with a friend of mine, and we went and visited another friend that we hadn't seen in a long time. Both of these friends had been through divorces and had remarried and had blended a family. And so they had a lot to talk about. And I'm just using kind of different names here, but Julie was the one that we were visiting, and she asked Sue questions about her life, just kept asking her questions and questions, and she just talked to her the whole time and didn't ask me anything about my life. And in my mind I was like, I don't matter to her, like she's ignoring me. And I had this thought, she doesn't care about me. And that made me feel really defensive. That was one of the feelings. I mean, a lot of self-pity, a lot of judgment, but I just chose the word defensive. And then from that defensive place, my actions were looking for evidence of her not caring about me. I was just kind of, see, she doesn't care about me. She doesn't care about me. And then like going back in the past and thinking about other instances when she didn't acknowledge me, finding reasons that I'm not important and seeing that like maybe I am kind of a boring person. Maybe I'm not interesting to anyone. Just kind of spinning in that and feeling sorry for myself that I'm not, as interesting or whatever. And then the result from all of these actions is that I'm not caring about me and I'm not loving her. Like it's all about, I'm just like in my head and I'm not experiencing this friendship the way that I want to experience it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and show you after coaching myself. Sometimes coaching involves like writing everything down, like writing all my thoughts down and then putting one of those thoughts into a model. And sometimes it's just a quick little like noticing and redoing it in my head. But with the condescension model, it's a hard word for me to say. So the circumstance is the same, where my son's teacher said, "You're the mom here." Now, this is what I decided to think instead, because I didn't like that feeling that it created of, sitting and spinning and all these horrible thoughts. It put just kind of this shadow over my whole day, and I felt I was in a funk. So I thought, okay, what's a different way that I can think about this that's not like punching myself in the face over and over again? And I thought, it's okay if she doesn't understand my life, right? Like she doesn't know what it's like to have 7 kids at home, some with special needs, and have to deal with a child that's, having all this anxiety. And it's okay. It's okay if she doesn't understand. And that helped me. It immediately created this feeling of compassion. I started just kind of thinking, okay, she's just a human and it's okay. And this feeling of compassion caused me in my actions to think about what I could do differently, like consider her advice a little bit and her thoughts, find ways to make it work better and consider her advice, like I said. So it kind of, freed me up to be able to just use my creativity more and come up with something that would feel better for me. And it created this result where I was being who I wanted to be. I wasn't being this judgmental, mean person. So that's just an example of what we can do with this model when we slow things down and think about a different way to look at it. Now, with this other one where I was with my two friends, so the circumstance is, and this is one where I just coached myself right in the moment, because I was just sitting there on the couch and I was watching them talk back and forth and back and forth. And I was just sitting there and I was like, I noticed that I was feeling this self-pity feeling, and I didn't like it. And so I thought, I wonder what's going on for her. Right? Like I kind of decided to just be curious about this instead of thinking about me. And from that feeling of curiosity, I was able to focus on her, and both of them in their conversation have more charity for them and engage in the conversation more if, when the time was appropriate for me to do that. And from a lot like more confident place. And the result was that I was enjoying myself and I was being who I wanted to be. So, this isn't something that created a lot of anger for me. And I know we're talking about anger, but a lot of thoughts lead to anger if we let them fester long enough. So that's why I shared this one. All right. So that was step one, using the model. And then step two is to notice, just really be aware and notice when you are mirroring the other person. Nines are really good at this. We're really good at meshing and blending with everyone. And so and sometimes that's good, but when they have got intense emotions going on, that's not what we want to be doing. We don't want to be doing the same thing that they're doing, because it just escalates and makes it worse. So when you find yourself starting to mirror, just choose who you want to be. Slow down your reaction to help you choose it intentionally. That's all it is just stepping back and slowing down a little bit. Wait, I don't want to mirror this person right now. I've noticed this with my kids a lot. When they get really escalated about things, I have one child that's just, he's a dramatic boy. And I noticed that my other kids get really irritated by it. But I've just gotten to where I'm like, I can just let him be dramatic. I can let him have a problem with this, and I don't have to be dramatic too. And it really just helps me to show up as the calm person that I want to show up as. So this was like a big eye opener for me when I learned this, that you don't have to be irritated about the other person being irritated. You can just let them have their experience. And it's funny how we think, especially in marriages, or when we have close relationships with people, we think that if we don't act the same way that they do, that we're not being loving. But it's the opposite. We can just allow them to be really upset about something, and we can keep our calmness and be present at the same time. So I'm not telling you to hide away, because that's the first inclination for us, is just to say, I'm going to let them have their little tizzy fit and I'm going to go in the other room. What I'm saying is you can engage with them and help them through processing this without it being a problem for you. I love just thinking about allowing all the humans in the world just to be humans. We have these brains that are wired for survival from our ancestors. We act from our lower brain often. That's just what we do as human beings. So it's not a problem. It's supposed to be that way. It's the way our lives were designed. And life is supposed to be 50-50. Like sometimes we feel good and sometimes we don't feel good. Allow everyone to have that experience, and it's okay. Okay, step 3 is to engage in healthy conflict on purpose. This kind of goes along with what I was saying before. Make it a point to talk about uncomfortable things. This is something that this is work that we have to do, because our first inclination is to hide away when there's conflict going on. But the more that we can practice this intentionally, the less it becomes a problem when it comes up. Share what's bothering you without being asked. So if you have something that's bugging you, instead of hiding away and ruminating, just say it. Say, I love you, but it really bothers me when you do this, or this doesn't feel comfortable to me. You don't have to think of it as this big confrontation. You have to realize that most of this confrontation is really just going on in your head. So don't wait to have those important conversations. Just have them at the beginning, and then it doesn't escalate and get more and more dramatic for you. Say no when you mean it. You don't need to please people. You can say no. It's not a problem. It's part of life. And develop a mindfulness practice that you can go to when you're triggered. This is probably probably the biggest thing I can teach in this call, besides the model, is being able to practice going out of our heads and into our bodies, because we are so self-effacing as nines. We are so others focused that we kind of forget what's going on with us. So when our anger is triggered, we have a hard time regulating ourselves. If you can get into the habit of going out of your head and into your body in those moments, it's going to calm you down much faster. And this is something that I've learned within the last few years that's made an enormous difference. When I, my 15-year-old with Down syndrome, say she's throwing something across the room and yelling and kicking things and stuff. She's over 100 pounds now, so it can feel really threatening. Instead of firing up and going into that fight mode, I'll step back and immediately go into my body. So I'll start tapping right here on this meridian on my collarbone. I'll close my eyes and I'll just say, I'm feeling really, really frustrated, feeling really scared right now. Where do I feel that in my body? And then I picture that emotion. Where is it? Oh, I'm feeling it in my shoulders and my chest, feeling that anger rise up in my chest. It feels fast. It feels hot. Just describe it to yourself like you're describing it to someone else. And even just saying the word of the name of the emotion is huge. So I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling irritated. Go into your body. Put your hand on your heart. Focus on your breathing. And then just tell yourself it's okay. I love myself anyway. And the next step I'm going to teach, or the last step, is going to be about compassion. That's a big part of this. So if you can practice those mindfulness, whatever it is that works for you to get you out of your head and down into your body and just noticing everything going on, the faster you'll get at being able to process those emotions when they come up during conflict. Okay, so processing your primary emotions is what needs to happen before they turn into secondary emotions. So fear is what leads into anger. So in those moments when you're feeling fear, when that conflict is happening, if you can just allow yourself to feel that fear, name it, notice it, just like I said, process it, then it's not going to escalate into anger. Does that make sense? Same thing with any other emotion. Disappointment. So say I tried to get a refund on something that I didn't like and it cost me a lot of money and it was past the 30 days and they wouldn't give me a refund. Instead of just going straight to anger and firing up and just being all mad, I can just let myself process that disappointment. I can carry it around with me for the day if I need to. It just looks like I'm feeling really disappointed right now. I don't like disappointment. I don't like how disappointment feels. Where do I feel it in my body? Kind of feel it in my gut. It's just this empty feeling that I feel in my gut. And it's okay that I feel this feeling because I'm a human and I love myself. Um, that is so much more effective than just letting it escalate into anger. Irritation, another one. Worry is another one. Just let yourself worry and process that for a minute before it turns into anger. Embarrassment is another one that can turn into anger. Just recognize those primary emotions and let your body do what it's designed to do, which is breaking down that emotion and dissipating. It only takes about 60 to 90 minutes to usually to process an emotion. Okay, finally is step 5, which is practicing self-compassion. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, but self-compassion, a lot of times we think of it as being really self-indulgent, like we're not supposed to have compassion for ourselves, but it's actually the opposite. It when we have compassion for ourselves, it encourages us to do better. Criticism doesn't. So when we're sitting there going, "Oh, I'm such a horrible person. I shouldn't be doing this." It it makes us more of a horrible person because we keep doing it. We can't hate ourselves better. Our brains need compassion to regulate. If you look at this picture of this mother and baby, when we were babies and we were feeling dysregulated and anxious about something, we would be swooped up into our mother's arms and hopefully, or our caregiver, loved through that, like given compassion. And so our brains are wired to be able to regulate when we receive compassion. And the problem is that we aren't going to receive that from other people all the time. Our partner might not give us compassion, our whoever it is, our friends, they might not be around to give us compassion in that moment. So we need to learn how to extend that compassion to ourselves. There's been a lot of studies on self-compassion lately, and they found that people who are high in self-compassion cope much better with negative experiences. So this warm embrace helps us to let it go. So I want you to practice this with me right now. So say you've just had this very emotional experience and you said something really passive aggressive, and then you're like, "Oh, that was not nice of me. I should not have done that." And then you start feeling a lot of shame about it. Just kind of picture yourself in that situation. Now what you're going to do is you're going to imagine that you are hugging yourself. So sometimes I'll put my arms around myself like this and just tightly squeeze and just breathe. Inhale and then exhale and just say, "I'm feeling that wasn't the best me. That wasn't the highest version of myself. I acted a little crazy in that moment. And I love and respect myself anyway." And it's amazing how that touch, what that does to your brain. It changes the chemistry in your brain. So whether it's a hug or if it's just putting your hands on your heart and just feeling your heartbeat slow down and imagine yourself just giving yourself that embrace, that self-compassion goes a long, long way in helping you. And it motivates you to want to show up differently next time. Okay, so those are the 5 steps. And my final thoughts are that really the only thing that we want in our lives is to feel a certain way. Anytime we're angry, it's because we want to feel a certain way, and it's whatever's happening we think is not allowing that to happen. So remember that your feelings come from your thoughts. Your feelings aren't just happening. They're actually happening because of sentences in your brain or unconscious things that are coming up. So just decide that you get to believe whatever you want to believe about what's happening. You can believe it's a problem, or you can allow the human to be a human. You can allow them to have all their crazy emotions, and you can just decide that it's okay. It's totally okay. Whatever you decide to believe, just make sure that it's creating those good emotions for you. That's how you know when a belief isn't serving you, is when it creates emotions that aren't comfortable. So look at those beliefs, look at those thoughts, and decide what you want to believe instead. And choose beliefs that are going to help you to be who you want to be. I love just asking myself, who do I want to be right now? You know, like when I want to yell at the clerk for not giving me a refund. Who do I want to be in this moment? It's not the clerk's fault, right? I want to be this, you know, calm and loving person. So this is what I need to think in order to do that. Okay, so those are my final thoughts. And if you have any questions that have come up during this, please email me. You can respond to this email if you receive this class through your email, or you can contact me through my website. It's heatherfillmorecoaching.com. So Fillmore is spelled Fillmore. You can contact me there, or if you want to talk, if you have, if you still struggle with anger or any other emotions and you just love some help with that, I do a free initial consultation with everyone. I call it a discovery call because we're just discovering things, and I can help you with whatever that tough problem is for you. And I can also explain a little bit more about what I do as a life coach if you're interested. So that is it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It's been a great learning experience for me, and I hope it was for you too. We'll see you later.